Look at, I have property, it's so amazing how fragmented this business is. I have property managers, like I have this property in Mobile, Alabama, okay? And I tell you, every month I get my check like clockwork. I never talk to the manager, like ever. There is, I think there's been one time in 8 years that they've deducted something from my check. And it was minor. I mean, nothing ever. I got these properties in the Florida Panhandle, and it seems like they always need repairs. Now, I will tell you, I love my property manager for those properties. I think that I've got a great property manager there. But maybe it's just the properties, I don't know. They just seem to need a lot of stuff. So it's all over the board. And my self-managed properties, okay, I find that for some odd reason, overall, they need fewer repairs. Now, maybe I'm setting myself up for some big deferred maintenance nightmare that I have yet to encounter, but here's what I think happens with self-management. And think about it. How many of you live in a rental? You rent the house in which you live. And don't be shy. I think that's a pretty good plan, as you know, okay? Okay, so several of you. And of you people, how many of you have a personal landlord that's just a private party, and how many of them have a management company that you're dealing with? Management company? Private party. Okay, so personal landlord. Do you like your landlord? Pretty easy going. Okay. Who else has a landlord, a private person? You?
Yeah, he's a private person.
Like him? Hate him?
He's okay. He's not very responsive.
Okay. All right. So hopefully he's not responsive when you pay late, right? Then he doesn't mind. He's very responsive suddenly then, right? Okay. So the thing with this is that if you are dealing with a person and paying your rent to a human being rather than some institution, right? You have, I believe, this is my theory of how this works. You have this pressure of a social relationship. And, maybe you're not going to bother them as much because you have to kind of maintain a relationship. Or if it's just some big company, you don't care. You'll ask them for everything. Oh, the light bulb's out. Come change the light bulb. Right? And so it's kind of a different sort of relationship. And I just noticed that on the self-managed properties, the tenants just don't seem to ask for as much. When there's a manager, sometimes they ask for more. Okay? But it's different. Some managers, there's just never a repair. It's just, for some reason, they must either pick great tenants who do all their own work and fix up my houses for me, or the tenants are so easygoing and they don't even notice any problems. I'm not sure, really. The self-management, it's definitely moving in the direction where self-management is becoming easier and easier and easier every day. Okay? The world is moving that way because there's so many new tools available all the time. Like there's a company called Cozy that does rent collection and tenant screening. That's how I would screen, by the way. Okay? Cozy. C-O-Z-Y is a company that does that. And they do rent collection too. Not collection, but I should say rent processing. Okay? My mom self-manages all her properties, and they're scattered in huge geographical distances. But my mom's kind of a weirdo because she's like what I call an extreme do-it-yourselfer. I wouldn't go that far. Okay? Hang on one sec. And what I would do is in between, when you have a tenant move and you need to get the property ready again, you use a real estate agent or a property manager to do the lease up. And they will handle the walkthrough of the tenant on the way out, have them send you tons of pictures. They will market the property to a new tenant, do the walkthrough of the tenant on the way in, have you send them tons of pictures when that tenant takes possession. You keep all these pictures, obviously. And then you decide what happens on the security deposit. Now, another thing happens on the security deposit, okay? You got to understand the dynamics of the relationship, right? So with a property manager, you have this triangle, okay? You have the owner or investor, that's us. You have the tenant, and you have the manager. and they all have different agendas. The tenant wants everything to be perfect and repaired instantly and pay as little as possible and be the biggest headache, right? Okay. The manager wants to maintain a good reputation with the owner and the tenant. And these motivations are in conflict because what does the owner want? They want the most money and the fewest maintenance items, okay? So everybody's got a different agenda here. But managers are very concerned nowadays about, number one, tenants suing them, okay? So, they don't want to get sued by tenants. They don't want to get taken to small claims court over, well, they didn't refund my security deposit, right? Because that becomes the manager's responsibility, okay? But the other thing is they don't want people going on complaint sites and writing bad things about them, which is free, okay? And that's the new big threat all these businesses have. These tenants can go on Yelp and say, this manager sucks. And that manager is going to get hurt by that. Their reputation will be hurt, right? Now they can fight back, and certainly many companies have sued people for writing Yelp reviews, and some have won. I mean, there's this one case where I read a news story about it. A woman hired a contractor to do some repairs and didn't like the contractor. They got in a big fight, and she went on Yelp and wrote this really scathing review, and the contractor sued the lady, and the lady had like an $800,000 judgment against her for what she wrote about the contractor. So be careful. You go online and start writing stuff about people, it better be true. So you got to be really careful about this kind of stuff. But just understand that there's tension in this relationship because you have these conflicting motivations. So the question is, will the property manager kind of nudge the owner or sell out the owner a little bit, saying, look, this tenant, well, they left the property in kind of bad condition, and you've got to paint and put in new carpet and all this stuff. And you go, what do you mean? The tenant was only there a year. Carpet should last 5 years and paint should last 3 years. I shouldn't have to do all that stuff. And they're like, well, it's really just wear and tear. And that's the kind of conversation you can get into, because there's these conflicting motivations. If it's just you and the tenant directly, you take that out.